Fundamentally, people don't want to work until they die. Some people might, but a lot of people don't. And yes, you need to have a plan for that, but how you're going to support yourself in life after work.
And when is the right time to engage with your pension?
10 years ago.
Well, that's helpful. You missed the boat, guys.
If not, then today. There's this phrase that people may have heard around compound interest or compound returns, that essentially when you're talking about savings and building up your assets over a long period of time, like you do in a pension, time is your best friend. Time is compound interest is, as Albert Einstein called it, the eighth wonder of the world. Basically, the longer you're in it, the exponentially more you get at the outcome because of how much those returns build up over time. So if you can start thinking about your pension as early as possible, it gives you that extra time to solve your future problems.
This episode is brought to you by Instant Impact. Instant Impact provides transformative talent solutions to small and mid-sized companies that are making between 30 and 500 hires each year. If your recruitment's giving you a headache and you don't know where to start, then give the team at Instant Impact a call or visit www.instant-impact.com for more information.
Hello and welcome to We Need to Talk About HR. I'm your host, Felix Mitchell. Now, we talk a lot on this show about employee experience, but there's one very exciting area that often gets overlooked until it's too late: pensions. Now, auto-enrollment has been a bit of a game changer for workplace savings, yet many employees still struggle to engage with their pension. And frankly, many employers look at this exercise as just another box to tick. And that's exactly the problem that my guest today is solving. Chris Eastwood is the CEO of Penfold, a specialist auto-enrollment company that's reimagining how we think about workplace pensions. So we're going to cover national insurance, salary sacrifice. Yes, we're going to bring the world of pensions to life. We're going to make this whole thing engaging and meaningful for your team. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Absolutely delighted to be here. Look, I'll take any opportunity I can to talk about pensions. So thanks for inviting me.
That's going to be on your creche then. Talk to me about pensions. Listen, it's all transparency here. I'm going to be the first one to admit that I do struggle to engage with anything financial beyond Instant Impact's P&L. I'm pretty sure I'm not alone. Why should people care about their pensions?
Fundamentally, people don't want to work until they die. Some people might, but a lot of people don't. And yes, you need to have a plan for that, for how you're going to support yourself in life after work. Now, the problem is that can be quite a long time away. And so, people have concerns today and the next few years that they want to think about more than, themselves in 30 years. But super important that people are thinking about how they're going to support themselves and their family when they get older.
And when is the right time to engage with your pension?
10 years ago.
Well, that's helpful. You missed the boat, guys.
If not, then today. There's this phrase that people may have heard around compound interest or compound returns, that essentially when you're talking about savings and building up your assets over a long period of time, like you do in a pension, time is your best friend. Time is compound interest is, as Albert Einstein called it, the eighth wonder of the world. Basically, the longer you're in it, the exponentially more you get at the outcome because of how much those returns build up over time. So if you can start thinking about your pension as early as possible, it gives you that extra time to solve your future problems.
Was Albert Einstein talking about pensions specifically?
He was talking about investing.
Oh, no way.
And compound returns, but it applies to pensions as well.
Fantastic. And I think there's an onus on the individual, on me, on everyone listening to this to kind of engage with their own pensions, but there's also a role for businesses to play within that.
Definitely.
I guess, talk to us about pensions beyond another benefit.
Yeah, I mean, it was great when the government brought in the auto-enrollment legislation sort of 10 years ago, because that essentially made non-massive businesses, so SMEs in particular, have to provide a pension scheme for the first time for their staff. Because, if you worked for a large corporate, you might benefit from their very large pension scheme, but everybody else wasn't saving enough. So auto-enrollment got businesses providing pension schemes to their staff for the first time. But the problem is it was sort of seen as a bit of a compliance exercise.
Mm.
There was new law came in, you had to provide a pension scheme, so people just did the minimum they needed to do.
I remember it well.
They signed up to whatever it might be, and they made sure that they were sort of ticking the compliance box. But it's a massive missed opportunity because ultimately it's the most expensive employee benefit, likely, in terms of the amount of money that goes into it because of the minimum contribution levels. And at the moment, if you're just paying that into something that the staff aren't engaging with, because maybe the tech platform isn't very good, or for example, that's a massive missed opportunity. That's people aren't valuing the money that's paying into that, let alone are you delivering a good sort of experience for your staff? Are your staff making the right financial decisions in that sort of pastoral way? But for me, it's a big missed opportunity for businesses to, I guess, make the most of the money they're already paying into a pension scheme by thinking about how do we make this more sort of engaging and relevant for staff.
But you think more than that. I've seen some of your LinkedIn posts, potentially ones geared towards being controversial, but I've seen you sometimes say, don't give people a raise, increase their pension contribution.
Yes. Well, super tax efficient to pay into a pension scheme rather than via salary, because ultimately that's the big benefit of pensions, is that they're income tax free on the way in. You only pay income tax on the way out in sort of several decades, and it's likely a much lower rate. So if someone's paid their bonus into their pension scheme, there's no income tax on that. So it's a much larger amount. And you can also do it via salary sacrifice as well, where you're helping your staff pay into their pension scheme through a reduction in their salary, and therefore you're saving on national insurance, which I can sort of talk about a bit.
Please do. I know any savings to national insurance people are going to be bang up for, so worth just chatting us through that.
Yeah, look, there was a big wave of interest in this earlier this year when the national insurance rates went up. Is a major cost for businesses, obviously, as everyone will be aware. And the salary sacrifice scheme is a great way of sort of navigating that. And really, salary sacrifice pensions, what that means is you've got an employer contribution into a pension, you've got the employee's contribution into a pension. The minimums are sort of 3% or 5%. With salary sacrifice, you make it all an employer contribution and you reduce the salary to afford that. So it's the same amount of money going into the pension scheme, but because the salary is lower, both the employer and the employee pay less national insurance. And so it's kind of a win-win for the employer, for the employee, pay less tax, get the same in your pension. Sometimes the employer also puts some of that saving into the employee's pension. There have been some concerns about, well, if I reduce my salary level, does that affect things like mortgages and other benefits that are linked to gross salary? Actually, what you find is that these days, most of those sort of providers factor in things like salary sacrifice, and they look at the net pay amount anyway, but worth checking. But no, it's a really important thing that unfortunately only 40% of SMEs are using it.
Is that right?
About 90% of large businesses use it because they have benefits consultants that come in and tell them to do it. SMEs don't have the awareness or the capability to implement this sort of thing. So it's one of the things that we help with. But no, yeah, massively underused scheme.
And do most pension providers do the salary sacrifice?
Yeah, so any pension provider will accept contributions via salary sacrifice. Really, it's for the business to set that up with whether they manage their payroll internally or with an accountant. It's at the kind of payroll end where you make those changes, and you've got to communicate it with your staff. You've got to sign a letter that says my salary is now 10% lower because I'm putting 10% in my pension. So the difference is that us as a pension provider, maybe there are others to help businesses with that implementation exercise, and you can pay kind of consultants to help you with this as well. But yeah, any pension provider will accept it. It's how do you actually make it happen? How do you put it in place in the first place?
Am I unusual in finding this kind of stuff quite difficult to engage with on a personal level?
Are you saying this is boring?
No. This is all the interesting stuff. This is like the company level stuff.
Yeah.
I think at the right, we're a Penfold user.
Yeah.
Right. I'm paying some of my salary in every year. And I'll be completely honest with you, I don't know what the percentage is, and I've never opened my Penfold app ever.
Yeah.
And I know on like a intellectual level that I'm being an idiot for not engaging with it.
Yeah.
am I just like a lone idiot with a podcast?
No, almost everybody feels that way, and that's people who work in finance roles, in investing roles. It's something about the pension that people kind of switch off, and there's two things going on there. It's going to benefit me in quite a long time, so maybe 20 years, 30 years down the line, and so if it's even remotely complex or confusing, or there are technological barriers to engaging with it, then the natural thing is that people will go, not today. And that's totally understandable. And so, that is how the majority of people feel. I think people, you also said that you kind of know that it's a bit of a big problem and you should be thinking about it, but you don't. And that's also what other people feel, because people know it's a problem. And so, the way that we approach that is that the reason they're not engaging with it is because it's complex and hard to do. So if we can make it not complex and make it easy to do, you're increasing the chance that someone's going to make a positive step with their money. And so I guess that's the sort of the ethos around using technology to make pensions much easier to use, because if people want to solve this problem and it's just too hard, then can we make it easier?
Yeah, that definitely resonates. What are some of the things that you've done then to make it less complex, more engaging?
Yeah, so there's a sort of visibility thing. Having an easy to open app that tells you not only how much money you've got, but also gives some context around that. So
I'm going to download it. By the time this is out, I will have downloaded it.
I was going to say we make it super easy for people to download.
No, you can lead a horse to water. But,
sometimes we send people into businesses and literally go, everybody take your phone out your pocket now, download the app and open it. And, that works. So we should have done the same with you guys. But yeah, it's technology gives you a big leg up in terms of making it visible.
Yeah, I think you did. I just skipped the meeting.
You skipped the meeting. Yeah. But that's the thing. I think if people think of the reason why people maybe put pensions in a different bucket to an ISA or a bank account is because the ISA and the bank account are much easier to see, and you can sort of, it's a real thing, not this sort of concept. So, because maybe they're used to pension providers where you don't have any information on it, etc. So making it visible, make it easy to access. And then it's about, okay, well, now they're in and they kind of understand, how much I've got, how much I'm saving, and what that means for me. Then you can start to weave in sort of, prompts to consider changes in circumstances and how you make, alterations to what you're saving and the impact that can have in the future. So I think, technology gives you a way in by making it kind of visible and easy to do. And then, from that point, we can then start to help change behavior.
And interesting, right? I guess when you actually see a pot that you're growing and you understand, if I increase now, then it will result in this. If I decrease now, it will result in that. That is an interesting process to go through.
Yeah, we like to think so. I mean, we're not deluded in that people, think the pension is the most interesting thing. I think it's connecting it to being, their money and a sense of what it can achieve for them in the future. That's what's interesting. If we can play out, what is it that you're saving for? What is it that you want from life? If we can start to tap into that, that's how you make people care about it. There's other things that you can do around showing people the, where your money's invested and the impact that it's having in the world. And that is interesting. And that, gives lots of material to update people on, or make them want to sort of check in on their pension. But I think fundamentally, if we want to solve the problem of getting people to care, we've got to show them why they should care, in terms of what it can unlock for them in the future, and then make it easy for them to do that.
And what are the key things that people care about in the future? I mean, presumably, like having a nice retirement and giving their kids something when they die. Is that the...
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's difficult if just talking about a 30-year-old or a 50-year-old. Because the 30-year-old will not have opinions on those things, potentially. The 50-year-old will have more opinions on that sort of thing in terms of the sort of level of income they might need, the sort of lifestyle they want to live, and do they have children? Do they want to leave money to them? So it does depend. One of the things that's quite simple is that there's some widely used standards around. They're called the PNSA Retirement Living Standards, and it basically says, look, here's what you need for a basic level of income in retirement, where you're covering the essentials and you're not in poverty. here's what you need for a moderate level of income, and here's what you need for a comfortable level of income. And so we essentially just triangulate how much are you saving and how much have you got, where's that going to get you on that range, and what does that mean for your life? How many holidays can you go on? Can you have a car? Can you, et cetera, et cetera? And that's just for a simple thing. That's about the level of detail that someone needs to kind of to think about, am I saving enough? And then, as I say, when you get closer to that retirement point, you can start to be a bit more detailed. There was actually, to continue that thought, there was some research released yesterday about those living standards. And this was not necessarily shocking revelation, but it's a worrying revelation that this was the Department of Work and Pensions. And 91% of the population aren't saving enough to be comfortable, that comfortable level. 73% aren't saving enough to have that moderate level. There's a much larger proportion that are having enough to do the essential level, but mostly that's coming from the state pension. So yeah, it's a stark reminder that people need to think about this stuff, because ultimately it's a big problem for themselves and society.
Well, you'll know more about this than I will, but I also feel like people shouldn't be relying on the state pension to be around when we're
quite
at that age.
Yeah, well, exactly. If you think decades down the line and the demographic shifts that we have in this country, it's not something to count on. Very gloomy note.
I was just thinking, and on that note, have you found though? I'm a relatively new Instagram user, having been banned by my wife for being embarrassing. I only posted one photo, and that was it. That's all it took.
Yeah.
And anyway, now I'm back on maybe. I was really surprised by the amount of financial education content out there. And how long have you guys been around for?
6 years.
Have you noticed an increase in people's financial literacy?
Yes, certainly increase in engagement in financial topics, and finfluencers, which is what you're talking about.
Finfluencers, I like it.
Finfluencers on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Through COVID really kind of boomed when you had the sort of the meme stocks and everybody was getting interested in those people who did have income during COVID. What can they spend it on? There was a lot more investing, and there was a big ramp in sort of interest in learning more about finance. And so at this point it's quite easy to find information. It's then what's the quality of that information, and there are a bunch of influencers who do a fantastic job, who have really good sort of education to give, and there are others that aren't quite so good. And so it's difficult for a casual person who isn't working in the industry to kind of pick between those two things. So that's probably the slight issue with it.
And same vibe for the ridiculous number of nutritional supplements.
Sure, exactly. Well, exactly. How do you know who to listen to?
I guess like with any of these things, I think this is one of the really interesting, almost contradictions of our time, which is the more information's out there, the easier it is to find information. I find the more I retreat into just asking my friends and family what they'd recommend.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's sort of the same for the influencers. God, that's tough to say. They need to rebrand.
Yeah.
and then you sort of nutrition side of things.
Yeah.
I just end up just going back to my own little circle.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, maybe there's a role for the employer here as well. For businesses or for people that are employed in full-time employment, obviously can get a lot of trust from what their employer is saying. And so, if the employer is thinking about bringing in like a financial well-being program where they have coaches or influencers that they sort of have gone through some sort of procurement process to pick and trust, then employees can kind of take confidence from that. Maybe there's a role for pension providers as well. Ones that are affiliated with us, we're giving our sort of seal of approval to. But otherwise, it's speaking to your friends and family.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
An IFA or
one of the things that I do find fascinating about the UK in particular is when you compare it to the US, there's such a low level of public, like individual investment in the stock market. These numbers are wrong, and you might have the right ones, but it's something like 15% of UK individuals will have invested in a publicly listed stock outside of their pension or ISA. In America, it's like 85% of people just like will regularly be like, oh, I'm going to invest in that stock, but it just feels like such a non-British thing to do.
Well, then there's a question: is that should they be? Should they be investing in individual stocks, or should they be investing in sort of ETFs and et cetera, but there's definitely culturally there's underinvestment in and it's much more of a savings culture in the UK than in the US. And I think Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, calls the UK retail investing market sort of the biggest opportunity of the next decade in global investment markets, so or global asset management. So I think there's a wave coming for sure, and the government wants that to happen. They're talking about reducing the cash ISA limit. They U-turned on that, but a
lot of that going around.
a lot of that going around. But I think it will come, and there's a lot of sort of push to get people to. Ultimately, people are all invested if they have a pension through their pension and may not realize that. And so, but I think there's a cultural shift that needs to happen where people stop worrying about the scariness of investing and maybe are worried about those capital at risk warnings that you see everywhere. It's more risky to leave your money in a bank account and have it be eroded by inflation for 20 years.
Yeah, I think we've all been feeling some of that.
Yeah.
And I guess kind of linked to that, you were talking about financial well-being and the rise of some of those programs. We're obviously, 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, it would have been quite like almost anathema for a small mid-sized company to be putting in tech and a platform and a real focus behind the pension side of things. So it definitely feels like there's a movement towards a company-led, sort of more programmatic involvement in the team's financial well-being. What are you seeing on the other side of things? You were talking about a future, this sort of future crunch that's coming in terms of people not having enough savings, but are you also seeing individuals more concerned about their own finances? Are you seeing an increased level of financial stress?
It's hard to say. Yes, people are. I think the financial stress that's definitely increased through the research that we do with our own customer base has been more day to day. Obviously through the inflationary environment we've been through, people struggling to meet their bills today, and that's where, for us, it makes our job harder talking about long-term savings when actually people have got short-term issues, and I think that's where the stress is coming from. I think there's certainly more chatter about pensions from the government and employers thinking about salary sacrifice and things. So people are aware of it, but I would say that the concern is rising, but it's more short-term in nature rather than long-term.
Silly question. Asking for a friend.
Go on.
If you put money into your pension and you really need it now, can you have it?
Not really, but you can.
Okay.
You would pay a really hefty tax charge to get it out before the age of 55, which is soon going to be 57, the retirement age for private pensions. So if you're very ill or, there are a few other little circumstances where you can take the money out early. But if you really, really need it, you can pay a sort of 60-something % charge.
Really, really high.
It's not great. One of the things that the government is talking about and the new pensions minister is talking about is this kind of concept where you can take up to £1,000 out of your pension before you hit retirement age if you need it. So it's this sidecar savings vehicle kind of concept that is being reviewed at the moment, whether they bring it in, and that will give people a bit more of a buffer and reduce maybe the barrier to saving into a pension that people have felt before, which is, how do I know I'm not going to need this money in 2 years when something happens? People need a sort of rainy day fund or a savings buffer, but maybe the pension can also help some of that too.
If you go bankrupt, do you get to keep your pension?
It's a good question. I don't know. See, look, it's good all
See,
of it.
it's complex. See, it's a complex world.
It's just been so pensions were used to be outside inheritance tax, and so that was a really effective tax planning sort of technique. Was that you sort of put all your wealth into a pension and then try and live off the ISA because you can pass the pension down tax free. But that's just changed where it has been included in the inheritance tax estate, which is probably fair.
Probably fair.
It's probably fair.
Just thinking that as well. And also, it's just so far away from what the vast majority of people are planning for, right?
It's true. Exactly.
So it feels like, well done.
Yeah.
Well done, Rachel Reeves.
Yeah, exactly. That's okay, that one.
I'd like to bring it back to the podcast, to HR. Could you share maybe how some of your clients or some businesses that you see are really leaning into the pension as a benefit and bringing it to life for their team? Just things that we like, things that the audience can copy and paste.
Yeah, definitely. So there's some fantastic businesses that we work with who, I guess, the starting point is seeing the opportunity that the pension provides in terms of, as I was saying before, there's already money going into this thing, so why don't we get the most out of it? When we sort of come on board as a pension provider for that client, we'll arrange a joint session with their team, with our team, where we go through and we help them understand. We sort of run through how pensions work. We run through some basic personal finance stuff, how to use the product and all of that. We help them set up salary sacrifice and all of that. And what they find is that the staff really appreciate that because they've never really thought about pensions before, and suddenly they feel more empowered. But we also sort of behind the scenes help them then set up these sort of tax saving ways of setting up the pension. But that's, I would say, the big opportunity for teams when they haven't really thought about pensions. We ran a study with 2,000 employees and 500 SMEs looking at their pension provision and looking at what their staff care about. And we found that 90% of employees considered the pension contributions and the quality of the pension scheme when they were thinking about, do I join or stay at a company?
90%?
90%.
Jesus.
And the next highest benefit was about 60%, whereas 50% of businesses prioritize all those other benefits ahead of pensions. So there's a mismatch there. We also found that for a person to use the pension scheme as a reason to stay or join a company, the employer contribution into the pension needs to be around 8 to 10%. So quite a bit above where the kind of minimums are from the government. But it just shows that you can set yourself apart as an employer if you invest in the pension scheme because it's tax efficient, because people see it as part of their comp, and maybe by underinvesting in some other areas of benefits which people don't value quite as much.
Yeah, it's amazing how hard it is to get people to engage in benefits.
Yeah,
and be excited about them.
Yeah.
So makes sense to do something that's like really meaningful. Instead of 2 for 1 at Cineworld. I don't know where that came from.
That's the thing, and that's obviously it's nice. The perks are nice, but actually you end up paying a lot of money or a reasonable amount of money, and they're sort of nice to have. Whereas actually, the pension is a critical part of your comp package.
Okay, so pension was number 1. Do you remember what number 2 benefit that people cared about was?
It was, to be honest, they were all way lower than pension. And that was all,
so it doesn't
that
matter.
Was all I cared about.
One.
But
the only one
exactly. No, I think it's health insurance was the next one.
Yeah, I think that's
66%.
Kind of goes to the world we're in right now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So one of the most transformative personal finance moments I saw was when, again, this is really embarrassing, but I'm doing a transparency thing. Right? Just radical candor.
Love it.
All of my savings were in cash. And I was having a drink with a friend who's very financially literate. And he explained compound interest to me. And was like, if you do nothing else, you need to put your money in an ISA, and then took me through how that would progress over years. Honestly, I felt like it was a mind-blowing experience. I was really shocked that I'd never been taught that before.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe less of a question, but I do think that it you're paying people so much money that actually it almost feels like a bit of a duty of care for an organization. Just be like, look, it is not overly complex to do pretty sensible things with your money that will make a material difference to you in 30 years time.
Because ultimately then they will have less financial stress and they'll perform better at work. To be if you're not just worried about doing the right thing by your staff, there is a real impact as well. I would say there's a role, like the education system needs to be better. The education system needs to help people understand concepts.
Do they still not do that at school?
Not to my knowledge, not across the board. The compound interest one, it's your money will double in 10 years if you invest it rather than leaving it in your bank account, and then it doubles again and doubles again. And that it's just so fundamental to how you should be living your life. And so education, and then employer, and then sort of providers and all have a role to play in helping people figure this stuff out.
Cool. So let's end on another really stupid question.
Okay.
Right. ISA's good, pension good. Both have compound interest. The reason you put money into a pension is because it's really tax efficient.
Correct.
The reason you would put it into an ISA is because you can use it before you reach 57.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
There's also higher limits to the pension. You can put more into a pension every year. If that's relevant to you. It's not relevant to a lot of people. Congratulations if it's relevant to you.
Well done. It is not to me.
But that's basically it. Yeah, exactly. And the ISA can be a cash ISA where you're just earning interest, or a stocks and shares ISA where you're investing it. I don't know why there's two different ISAs. It should just be one ISA. Doesn't make any sense. The pension you can do both in, but most people would be investing in stocks and shares or funds in the pension scheme.
Fantastic. Well, let's leave on a bit of a call to action.
Okay.
HR leaders, if you're listening, business leaders, if you're not using your pension in a really thoughtful way with an awesome company like Penfold, we do really like them at Instant Impact. Even other people are very into it. I have to say, it is nothing to do with you guys. But now I'm going to really lean in. That's a promise. But let's all, for all of you folks out there that are like me, I just do think it's worth an hour of our time. Let's jump in. And I know that the team really appreciate the work that we do with Penfold. So we'll leave a link to you guys in the podcast notes. And Chris, on that note, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I've loved it.